Episode 6, we've got Harry Purdy. Harry, it's long overdue, this, mate. Not necessarily the podcast, because obviously I've only just started them, but it's about time we actually had a proper conversation, because we've met a few times, we've crossed paths and stuff, but we've never actually had, we've had brief chats, but never actually got to know each other. So I'm excited to get to know you a bit better today, mate. It's unique as well, isn't it, this podcast thing, because it's it doesn't happen very often in day-to-day life, does it? You don't get a chance to sit down and have a uninterrupted, dialed in sort of conversation with someone.
Mate,
So
you've
it's
got me straight on a subject I'm passionate about, right? And I think when people say to me, why'd you do it? What's the reason that you've run the podcast? What do you take out of it? It's actually just sitting down, especially obviously these are great, right? We can have a great conversation, but when you eventually move into doing in-person episodes as well, just having that full-on in-depth conversation with somebody for what could be 90 minutes, an hour to 90 minutes. How often do we do that in life nowadays? And
never happens,
and
does
when
it?
you think about the way that the human race has progressed and social time, that would have been what people would look forward to at the end of a workday, our 90-minute conversation with their friends. And now, obviously, with it being the 21st century, the distractions are plentiful, and there's way other things that we can get distracted with rather than just being social with other people, right?
Exactly. I can't remember last time I had a conversation with one of my mates where one of our phones wasn't getting notifications or phone calls, or I'll just reply to this message and then the conversation gets interrupted, doesn't it? So, but you're no stranger to podcasts anyway. You've done what, over 200 episodes of your...
212 now, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Mate, that's mad. That's mental.
Yeah, so it's been a long process, and if anybody's listening to the show and they are like, oh God, he must be really good, or it must be amazing, it's a bit of a false narrative, really, the number on your episodes, because when you look at there's no point in some ways comparing to your Modern Wisdoms, your the Diary of a CEO podcast, all of those kind of things, because of the budget that they've got behind them. Unfortunately, as we speak right now, I don't have 100K that I can just build a studio and pay somebody 20, 30, 40 grand to come and sit on an episode with me, right?
That's their full-time gig as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
so...
exactly. But if you look at the journey from 2021 to where we're at now, it's progressed. I've had many amazing guests on, and it's been a journey. And and you know what? When you think about conversation, we talk about conversation at the start of the episode as a skill. It definitely makes you better, gets you thinking about how you communicate, whether the questions you're asking are the right ones, not necessarily whether there's a right or wrong, but whether they lead to better conversation throughout the rest of the episode, for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm doing it, because obviously I work on my own a lot, so I don't have conversation that much through the day. Obviously, I'm a painter and decorator. I'm alone. I don't have that much conversation. So that I identified that as a weakness that I had, communication skills. So that's why obviously I started. But have you been on many other episodes as well? You've done a few other podcasts and stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been on, I reckon, double figures now. But
yeah,
I love it because it just gives you that break from being the host to or I think in some ways it reminds you why you enjoy it, right? Because you see somebody else getting the buzz of hosting an episode. You talk about your story, which is in my case, and for a lot of other people that go on episodes, like you just had Sam Gibson on, it reminds him why he does what he does, because he's good at it and he's good at communicating as well. So on a little anecdote, actually, going back to the I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to share this little story. So I was in this is regarding conversation, and I can't remember the word the woman used, but we'll get to that in a minute. On Sunday last week, I was in a car park, and it was one of those car parks that you don't need to pay on Sundays, right? But there was two, I'm going to say just into retirement age women stood by the machine about to pay for the car park. I was like, not to interrupt, ladies, literally as simple as that, but you don't need to pay today. And they were like, oh, how civilized, thank you very much, how unusual. And I was like, in my head, I was like, obviously I appreciated their comments and whatever, but I was like, is that where the standard's at now, is it? You just need to be a little bit nice and communicate a small amount for somebody to think that it's a little bit out of the ordinary. I don't know, I think people got to step up and do a little bit more, you know?
But no one does. No one talks to each other. Nobody knows their neighbours and stuff now. Like you said
Crazy.
years ago, that would have been that would have been what you're doing every day. Like you would have had a conversation with your neighbours. There was nothing else to do, was there? So, I
Yeah, it's
s-
amazing. I
so
mean, I'm pretty fortunate in terms of where I've been brought up. Like, I'm from the south of the UK, place called Yeovil. The village that I was from, or I am from, is such a social village. It's a rare place, mate. Like the working men's club, although it revolves around beers and whatever, is always busy. There's always things going on, and people do know everybody there. But you step into London or you step into a
yeah.
busier city, the people's heads are in their phones, nobody's talking, headphones are in, and that's that, innit?
Yeah, but I find that's getting more. I always noticed that when I was younger, when I used to go to London, like nobody spoke to you. Like, but I find that's getting more like that up here now as well. Like, just people,
Really.
people don't really, like you say, people's heads are in the phones and they're just not interested in getting to know anyone other.
You
But
could put your proper tinfoil hat on and say that that's what they want, but
so I fair play to you for doing that many podcasts, man. It's I've discovered lately. I'm only this is 6 episodes in, and it's harder work than I thought it would be. It's not just like having the conversation, but you've got all the like prep, you've got organising with the other person, and like you've got to write descriptions and thumbnails and all that sort of stuff. It's harder than what people think, innit? Like
yeah,
obviously,
especially when the game that we're in, Dan, it's about improvement and growth without obviously pulling yourself from pillar to post. And like you say, if I weren't to have seen some improvement and seen some growth in my podcast, I'm the kind of person that I may have looked back with some disappointment, right? I've done 212 episodes, but the 212th episode looks exactly the same as what episode 1 did. But to get that growth, there does come, or there is involved some hard work, there is involved some change, there is involved with, like, sometimes it goes away from a hobby, and especially now with the amount that I've done, and there is a little bit of a sense of, I don't know, responsibility to make sure that what I'm releasing isn't just I record a podcast on Zoom, I don't edit it, I release it unedited. Now there is a process. I want to get the reels. I want to make sure that I'm on my A game. I want to make sure that it looks good, blah blah blah. So yeah, of course, there's definitely some responsibility and some hard work attached to it.
I mean, do you have like a structure with your podcast? Do you do like research and stuff, and do you have questions and stuff that you want to sort of
I
stick
normally
to?
have 3 to 5 talking points that I want to nail down. And with the speciality of the guest, if there's something that they, like, I don't know, for example, if somebody's bio says that they empower men from being depressed to energized or whatever, that's just an example. I will want to speak to them directly about that thing and give them the opportunity to explain how they do that. Within that subject, there's probably, I don't know, it's an infinite amount of talking points. And if they say something that's interesting during that little anecdote, I'm like, right, let's go in on this one. I
Yeah,
fancy talking about this today.
tangents.
Yeah.
I like tangents, but
Yeah.
yeah, I should probably have a bit more structure though, because like I suppose like you see, I'm just learning. It's 6 episodes in, isn't it? So
Yeah,
uh,
without give the only thing having those 5 points would help with is if you do have a mind blank or in the episode that you've got something that you know is relevant to your guest. But the more you do them, I could probably do an episode now with just the title of what they do and be okay. But it's just nice to have those points to fall back on if needed.
yeah, class. So how did it come about then? Your podcast? What made you start doing them?
COVID, the old C bomb, was the thing. I think, like a lot of people, COVID was the time where people reflected a lot on where they were in their life and whether actually what they were doing was the right thing for them. I didn't have anything that dramatic, but COVID was, if I look back at my own journey, was around that COVID time was when I was at my lowest, when I, not at my unhealthiest physically, but mentally I was pretty shot, and I was just kind of scratching around for, like, what is my passion? Like, where am I going to get some kind of, not joy, because that sounds a bit dramatic, but I guess that's what I was looking for. I was looking for something to occupy my brain, which was really bored at the time. I remember I went through, I don't mind admitting this, I went through some phases. I've always been a massive football fan, but also a bit of a gaming nerd as well, more so 10 years ago. And I used to play a game called Football Manager. So I went through a phase of creating content for Football Manager, but that never really landed. It was all a bit too nerdy, you know what I mean? So I went from doing that, and then I was like, no, there's something in this with sport and like my passion. I've loved sport, so I started a podcast. I spoke to my mate about on one of the COVID walks. You know, when you're allowed to go out of the house once a day and for an hour to get your steps in. I remember chatting to my mate about it. I was like, oh, I really want to do this with my links with grassroots football and enjoyment of sport. There's been quite a few people that have done quite well locally in sport. I was like, I want to get them on and talk about their thing, you know? Cutting a long story short, I did around 30, 40 episodes of grassroots chat. So I'd get the chairman of the Somerset FA in, spoke to my really good mate of mine that went on to play professional rugby. But quite quickly, with the crossover of me joining into Paul's alliance group, I found myself talking more about the mindset of their sport and their achievements and what they learnt about themselves rather than actually the sport. So obviously I ran with it a little bit, and I was called the Grassroots Guy. That was the original name of the podcast. And then I flipped it into mindset. So it was the Grassroots Guy, but I talked to people about mindset stuff. So I'd start getting guests from Alliance on, reaching out to people like Nick Littlehouse, Cristiano Ronaldo's sleep coach who came on, professional cricketers, blah, blah, blah. And then there came the revamp with speaking to. Do you remember Craig Gillespie that worked in?
Yeah, the
Total
brand it's
Brandits. He rebranded me, and then we were founded as the 100% podcast. So there's a nice little story in there.
yeah, that's good, isn't it? I like that what you've done with that with the HP, the 100%
Yeah,
and
mate.
it's clever.
It was, and like seriously, it was just by chance. I know it sounds that's impossible. That's just by chance. We were like, oh shit, like 100%. I said it a lot. That was the thing that, you know, when you get like a talking tick, one thing that you say a lot, that was it. Oh yeah, 100%. I agree with you 100%. And I was like, Craig, we've got to do something with this. And then he's like, HP is your initials. There it is. We found the name
Yeah,
of the podcast. So yeah.
that's clever. Now, was that wasn't really the start of your personal development journey though, was it? Like, because I've seen obviously you sharing stuff about your weight loss journey and
Yeah,
stuff.
man.
Would you say that was where you started getting into personal development, started working on yourself a bit more, or
Definitely.
was that purely just like a weight loss thing, and then you moved on to the mindset stuff later on?
I my my story for weight loss was I've alluded to the fact that I was a grassroots manager. I did grassroots managing from the age of 18, just after leaving college, to 26. And in that time, I ballooned to 23 stone. Couple of factors: not active enough, left college, wasn't playing football. Although I was a grassroots manager, too much beer, definitely. I was in a football team, so that was a social life in itself. And I don't know, from a family and an upbringing, alcohol was just a thing. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah,
in 2015, 16, my team, we had like an incredible season. It's something that like my group of mates will talk about now to this day. We won the treble, but in that season I was playing on and off, but as a really big lad. And in that final, I had a decision to make whether it would be put myself in the squad or the team, or actually play people that were fitter than me. And I decided to go with the benefit of the team and played other people instead of me because of my shape and my fitness, which led to a bit of a internal dialogue like, why aren't you playing? You shouldn't be this unfit. My like family and whatever were there. So on that morning of the cup final, I went out for a run and realized that I couldn't run a mile. Like the distance, I was like, I'm just going to go out and go for a run. I couldn't run a mile nonstop. And I was like, holy fucking shit. And it was just like the penny dropped, where I'd kind of ignored the fact a couple of different, like my dad had tried to allude to the fact, Harry, you've put on a bit of weight, mate. But obviously when you're that age and you're not that happy clearly within yourself, I'd never accept it that way. I'd be like, oh, fuck off, dad. Or like, you're not being very nice kind of thing. But he was just trying to help. But it was
yeah,
that moment that the penny dropped and I was like, right, it's time to do something about this. And then that journey started. I would go on runs and gradually built up sort of distance and whatever, but really, really struggled. Like I'd have moments where I would go on extreme diets, salads for lunch, not really eating that much. And then I'd lose a stone and be like, oh, I've cracked it. And then go back to stage one, which this is what my coaching is about now, right? It's about stopping that quick fix mentality,
Yeah,
stopping the stopping, essentially.
yeah,
Eventually then, after a few stops and starts, I stumbled across James Smith online, so a couple of years later, and that was really the start of it being taken quite serious. Somebody that had broken it down to be something that was like pretty simple to follow, blah blah blah. And yeah, then the mindset stuff as well alongside that.
yeah. So I wrote something down because I didn't want to interrupt you, but you played yourself. You played yourself first. You didn't play yourself. You made the decision to play someone else instead.
Yeah, man. Which was
That's quite a good thing, because you see it all the time with like people. I'm not into football, so I can't really relate there. But like I've got mates who coach kids and stuff, and you'd think that they'll tend to play their own kid, even though there's other kids that are better. Do you know what I mean? It's like a bias
mate.
thing. So I would imagine that you get that a lot with managers as well, where even though they know they're not as good and there's better players, it's like an ego thing, and they'll play themselves
I've
instead.
got a funny story. Funny you should say that. When I was definitely impacted by that as a kid. So no disrespect meant, but completely falling in line with what you're talking to here. Twice as a kid, my grassroots football manager chose his son as manager's player of the season, and you're like,
Yeah,
like, obviously at the time you don't really click on it, but your parents are fuming about it because it just shouldn't happen. And then also when I had 1 year, I moved across to rugby for a year. The manager or the coach chose his son to be the team's captain. And it was like not the obvious choice, blah, blah, blah. And I've never been like that. And again, I think it's probably the reason why I've fallen into wanting to help other people with like the freebies that I've created to help people either get over their weight loss or work on their mindset. And even into coaching, you've got to want to benefit other people, right? If you're just thinking about yourself when it comes to coaching, of course there's the financial side of things, but that's a secondary. You have to show that you can give value to somebody else. And I think when it comes down to football coaching, I love the impact that I'd have on the community, my team and my family. We put on a couple of events, quite big events, where we did a mock Euros, so like a five-a-side thing, and a mock World Cup where we got 32 or 16 teams together from the local community. Big day, stuff for the kids to do, penalty shootouts, but also the main event of us messing about with like fake Portugal t-shirts on and stuff like that, which would raise money for what was supposed to be for the facilities at the football ground and those kind of things. So I've always been about that. So I guess when it came to choosing the squad on the day, it was a no-brainer for me. Although there was some disappointment there, there was 17, 16 other lads that were more important than my own personal vendetta on the day.
yeah. But it was the right thing to do on it. So
Oh yeah, we won as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
whether we'd have won or not if I was in the team, maybe we would have. But can't look back with that attitude. It was about putting other people first.
yeah. I can't relate, like I say, much to the football. I'm not into football, but the gaming bit that you said before, I was into that. And believe it or not, I did used to actually play Football Manager as well, even though I'm not into
Oh,
football. So
nice. Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
strategy thing behind it, that's what I like. That's what gets me. But yeah. So the mindset stuff, obviously, you mentioned before about working with Paul. What led you to? You mentioned James Smith. Is that how you found out
Yeah.
about Paul?
Oh, and also I was there was a time in my life, so around COVID, where I was not a happy boy, mate. I think there was some I think I like unspoken things that had held me back in my life. I was quite an anxious kid, without really realizing it or without really labeling it. I would quite happily shut myself in a room and lock myself into a game for 6 to 8 hours. I was quite anxious in my relationships. Anytime that I'd sort of like got to know girls or got in relationships, there'd be things, whether it be about me or about them, that would hold me back. Not that it was just about me being like scared or whatever. It'd just be little triggers that my brain would just overreact, and I'd kind of go down a catastrophizing route. But it would sort of impact, and it started to impact other areas of my life. Like, I go to work and I couldn't really work out why I was feeling so low energy. And then because had low energy, I'd get in my own head about it. And then because I was in my own head, I'd then get upset. And it was just like a bit of a like spiral. And as well, a good thing and bad thing, around that time, I don't know if you remember, COVID was around the time where it was like, it's okay to not be okay. And that message was just being slammed home, like anxiety's on the rise in young men and all of those kind of things. And I thought that I was going to be like the next statistic. That was what was going through my head. That was the intrusive thought that was going round and round and round in my head. So come to a crunch point where I was like, I've got to do something about this, because whatever I'm doing on my own just isn't working. So I went to therapy first and then stumbled across Paul Mort. And with those two things coming together, it was just the first time really that I proper looked at the things that had happened in my life, which, look, in the grand scheme of things, there's nothing that traumatic. It was just that my parents had broken up when I was young. It was sort of a spoken about event, really. Like, dad had kind of carried the weight of it on his shoulders, and I stayed with him. I love him to bits, but he's like, you know what I mean? It definitely impacted him. And when you're in that environment, it can. And then I had, on the other side of the fence, my mum finding somebody else and moving on, which for a young man, I didn't really know how to process that well, you know? So all of those things came to a head, and I could see how it had impacted me. And then it was just about making that decision. Did I want to be somebody that, as Paul would probably have told me, did I want to be somebody that let that story run the rest of my life? Or was it about flipping a switch and going, right, not going to play victim to those things anymore? Yes, they've happened. Yes, you got to accept them. Yes, they can make you feel shit every now and again. Sometimes I'll get a wave of emotion now, like thinking about the things that I processed as a kid. That's essentially all it is, right? It's what your kid has gone through that didn't really know how to process it. Me as a kid, sorry. And then, yeah, and that's been the journey from there, mate. So I just doubled down more on me, my mindset, what I wanted to achieve in life, how I was feeling, what I wanted to do, the podcast, my fitness. Obviously, within the program as well, I've probably gone and jumped multiple levels. Like, yeah, I'd got a handle of my weight when I was working with James Smith, and when I kind of found the calorie deficit stuff and all of those kind of things. But as we get told, right, physical health needs mental support, but at the same time, your mental health needs physical support as well. So it's just been working hand in hand since there, really.
Yeah, yeah. It's so like, was there something that attracted you, and was there something that you said that made you, because it was like what you said about the COVID before, that was when it was with me. It was after lockdown. I'd spent, and obviously we've talked about the gaming and stuff, I'd spent pretty much the whole of lockdown playing games and doing
Yeah.
nothing. Like, I had nothing to show for like a full year, just about, in 2020. So it was literally New Year's Eve 2020, like going into 2021, when I had like my light bulb moment, where I realised that I needed to sort my shit out. And I'd signed up for like a virtual Land's End to John O'Groats thing. So I was like, it would give us something to do, because we're still in lockdown at that point. It was something to do. And I thought, like, me initial thought on that New Year's Eve was, I don't want to get to this time next year and feel like this. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I want to be able to look back over my year and have accomplished loads of stuff. So like I say, I signed up straight away, done that Land's End to John O'Groats thing. And as I was doing the walk, I was listening to podcasts. At the time, I was obsessed with, the SAS Who Dares Wins thing on the telly. And
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
I'd listened to Ollie Ollerton's book. And as I was, after I listened to that, I liked what he was saying. So I looked for him on podcasts, and I come across him on Paul Mort's podcast. And then I started listening to Paul, and I listened to his book. And then that's when I started. That's what got me into it. That's where I found him. So I was just wondering.
Paul originally, so Paul has flipped his business a little bit now, hasn't he? And he directly talks to business owners. He wants to be a business mentor rather than a mindset mentor. Now, when I first saw Paul, he was very much in the whole reframing your anxiety game. he was very much don't put labels on shit, very much about where your attention goes, energy flows kind of
Yeah,
thing. And that's what got me to him. So I was like, this guy can, well, what I, in my head, I thought the phrase was, this guy can fix me, you know? I thought
yeah,
that, I honestly thought when I was going through my mental turmoil in my own head, like arguing myself. I didn't like. There was points in my life where I didn't know what thoughts were fucking real and which ones were um like made up. You know, I was like, well, yeah, it was just crazy. Um, and what I think is scary about that, mate, is that if you don't find somebody like Paul and a coach that has been there and done it, he's gone through his own mental turmoil. If you don't find somebody like Paul, your alternatives are quite limited. And there's no disrespect to the NHS system, but like from what I've seen and the clients that I've worked with who have come with me specifically for mental health and mindset, the advice that they've been given is very much anti what I would tell them. And it's not saying that it's wrong, it's just a different mindset. And there's different people, right? Some people would hear what I'm saying about anxiety, depression, mental health and be disgusted because that's just the thing to do in the 21st century, right? And there's people like me and you and Paul who'd go, oh, fuck yeah, he's right. So, you know, and that's what Paul did to me. He just sort of said things in black and white. He made it was very pragmatic, like the stories that he used to do. And I remember asking him a question on a story once, and he responded to me, and I just remember instantly. It was almost like he used to call himself Vitamin P, didn't he? I don't know if you remember that. It was like literally like somebody giving me a little bit of a boost and made me feel back in control for the first time in a long time. So then I did Unstoppable 28, which was
yeah.
28 days of the like 1 month of working with Paul.
When did
Did
you do that?
oh fucking hell, mate.
Was it was just like I said, it was 21, I think, 2021 when I done it.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure this is my 4th year in Alliance.
Right.
I would say 5 years ago, yeah. 21, yeah. So, yeah, Unstoppable 28, 1 month of intense work, which was, from my memory, a Facebook group and loads of paperwork. I just remember filling in the journal or, like, the work he was getting us to do. It was so anti what I thought would work as well. You know what I mean? That's one thing that
Yeah, yeah.
I'll scream home to, like, with my own philosophy now and what I've gone on to work with Paul and with Dax Moy and whatever. Like all of these things, there's an old version of me that would like look at me and go, "What the fuck are you doing?" You know?
Yeah,
Uh,
same, yeah.
and then there was,
Journaling, meditating,
yeah,
yeah.
you got it, mate. You got it. Uh, then there was a what was the Mansformation? I remember going up to the day after the end of 90 days and I was like, I've got to be part of this. Like this has started to turn my life around. And it did. Like, and obviously it wasn't something that overnight it just changed. Like my brain started to function in a more coherent way. It wasn't overnight that I started to label thoughts and get on top of them and ignore thoughts and learn how to literally take myself out of the middle of that, like the motorway, right? The motorway of thoughts. You need to watch from the bridge above it rather than jump in the middle of the cars and try and dodge them. It's impossible. It wasn't overnight that I got the confidence to stick myself out there with videos. It's all been a journey, and I don't mind saying it, right? I paid to play, and I worked with Paul, and it's the reason that where I'm at today has happened. To be honest,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly the same with me. Like Unstoppable 28 finished. I couldn't argue with the results that I got from that. So I jumped on to the next one, the Transformation. Couldn't argue. Like I got so much from it. But there's still stuff now that you'll say like nearly 5 years later. And like you say, it's not overnight, where I think actually I heard that on Unstoppable 28. And that like it just sinks in now, like all them years later. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I never went down like the therapy. I've never done that. Obviously, I've suffered quite a bit with my mental health over the years, but I've never really seen how talking about your past can help you. I mean, there obviously is something to it because they're like professionals and they know what they're talking about, but just you're not going that way, are you? You know what I mean? You're going
no.
forward.
And
So
there was a point with my therapist was amazing, right? And I think the one thing that she did for me was where I was so at war with myself when I remember the first session, mate. I remember just walking in and it was like somebody just released a valve in my eyes and I just cried, mate, because I was at war. I was so at war with myself. I thought something was wrong with me. And I think the best thing that my therapist did to me was untangle that like thought process and made it very a normal thing, which again, when you look at the environment and the background that I'd had, like my granddad was tough. He was a fucking on a minesweeper in World War II. My other granddad was in the RAF. My dad not doesn't like I said, like carried the weight of the relationship with mum and probably still does in some extent. And I kind of got brought up around that. So I was in an environment where really emotions didn't get spoken about too much. So you could see why they'd bottled up inside of me. But we unpacked that and a lot of the stuff around like childhood trauma and understanding that the thought processes that were going on in my head weren't me as an adult. It was just a scared version of little Harry, you know, coming out.
Yeah,
And it was about building that relationship. But then there does come a time where you can only go over those things so much. And that's where I believe that people need to be self-aware enough to realize, am I going to therapy to talk about the same thing I spoke about 2 weeks ago or last week? Or am I going to therapy to make progress and
yeah,
talk about something that isn't the same as what we've been speaking about for the last month? And sometimes I think that awareness of going, oh shit, like I said that last week as well, can be the penny dropping for somebody to realize
yeah,
that actually a different approach might be needed. And I always think
yeah,
as well, like that when there is a lot of emphasis on the past, and when you are feeling low, there can be a pattern that I can spot in some of the people that have just started working with me, where you're saying like, okay, so what are we going to do next? Like, what's in the future? And there's like I don't know. They do know. Like, I think everybody knows what their inner self and their dream, like I call it, like you're being what your 100% self wants. You do know what it is. You just have never been given permission to speak about it before.
yeah. Are you
And
scared?
I think that that's the next step when you've spoken
Yeah,
about
so
it. Yeah.
yeah, so it sounds like there's benefit in both, obviously. But was there a point where you did your the coaching stuff where where you learned something and thought like, yeah, I want to do this? Is that how you sort of got into it?
Mate, to be honest with you, I was approached really kind of early on around in the COVID era as well. When I just started doing the podcast and people were coming to me, Harry, I've seen that you've lost fucking, I don't know, 25 kilograms. Can you help me? So initially, straight away, it was, I've always, like I said, mate, I've always been somebody that in some way or another has put myself out there, whether it just be by the podcast or even earlier than that, I guess I stuck myself out there to be a manager of a men's football team at a young age, blah, blah, blah. So I don't think anybody has ever had a problem approaching me to ask me things, which is a nice trait to have.
Yeah,
And so I helped a few people. I helped a guy lose a lot of weight so he could have an operation on his knee. I remember a couple of my mates dropping some weight with me. But then you'd have the challenging, not in a bad way, but this is where you learn your craft, and then you realize that it like sometimes just giving somebody a calorie deficit and a step plan and a gym plan isn't all you need, like isn't the only part of the game. And then that's when I started developing my own coaching methods. And actually, I think that the one thing that I will always I like the debate of is what does come first. It's like the chicken and the egg question. Is it, do you work on your brain first, or do you work on your work on your fitness first to get the end results? I don't think there is an answer. I think you could answer a hundred a hundred reasons why for mindset and mental health, and I think you could answer 100 reasons why for fitness as well.
yeah. So I think with that, in my opinion, is like if your goal is to just lose weight and you lose weight, there's a good chance that you're going to put it back on. But if your goal is to become like a healthy person, like once you've got that identity, then you're not like pursuing behavior change anymore. You're like acting in alignment with the type of person that you already see yourself as. Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, the mindset stuff comes first. To be fair, if you want to make lasting change, I think that's the key.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with either argument. I've always kind of just gone. I have debates with myself. I stick it into ChatGPT, and we have good arguments and good debates together as
Yeah,
well. Because I think it's really important to, if you have a philosophy or if you have an opinion, to have it challenged by something or someone else is a good thing. And I really do believe that there's an argument for both ways. If I was to, if you was to pay me £1 million to give you what my answer would be, I'd probably agree with you, Dan. You know, I think you can't. The days where motivation doesn't turn up are the hardest days to go out and do the fitness elements. But it's always the mindset and the way that you think about the challenge that you've got ahead of you that gets you to do it in the end.
yeah. Yeah, you've got to create them systems, haven't you? Like I've just been reading Atomic Habits now by James Clear,
But yeah,
and yeah, I've read it before, I've listened to it before, but I can never sort of retain the information, like because obviously I just read it, and then I've read and listened to probably thousands of books over the years, and I can't. If you ask us about any of them, I wouldn't be able to tell you about them. So,
yeah.
and you were saying about ChatGPT, I've got ChatGPT to ask us some questions when I finish reading the book. Now, I've got to ask us some questions so that it'll help us like answer by answering the questions. It helps us like retain some of that knowledge.
Yeah, look, a good one for you as well would be to get your own definitions from things as well. So, like, how could I create my own opinion from this book would be a great question to ask ChatGPT, and then it would
Yeah,
give you a prompt to get it. I think it's always what I like the concept of is like even today I've spoken about two people with James Smith being a caveat for helping me understand weight loss, and then Paul Mort one thing, and they won't, I'm sure Paul won't mind me saying, there's no good only going around with Paul Mort's opinions. There's things that I would probably disagree with Paul on now.
yeah,
And in fact, if you go back and listen to our most recent episode together, I remember challenging him on a couple of, not challenging him, but just asking him to go a bit further on a few things. And and I think that's really important. And you can see that in the most shallowest of ways, can't you, with regards to the whole, like, I don't like talking about politics, but if we talk about the news, like you actually really wonder when people are sharing statuses and sharing posts and getting really fucking annoyed about something. Is it their opinion that they're annoyed about, or is it the opinion of somebody else that they're just carrying around with them?
yeah,
Where I'm going with that is that when it comes to our own belief systems and when it comes to our own coaching or the way that we run a business, for example, like I doubt you would run things exactly the same as Paul would. You take ideas from him, but you'd be like, I love this idea, so I will actually keep this 100%. But the way that he does his interviews, I'm going to just add this question in it because this is important for my business rather than his, you know? So, yeah, I think it's just, I think that's a challenge that we in the 21st century is impacting a lot of people. Is that because there's so much information, because there's so many people giving opinions, nobody's really got their own.
yeah, yeah. Mainstream media's got a lot to answer for on it, but like you
Yeah,
say,
man.
I don't like talking about politics on this one either, so we'll not go there. Do you like we touched on books and that there? Do you read much or?
Yeah, mate. I am currently rereading Peter Sage, the
Yeah,
book that we
yeah,
wrote,
yeah, yeah.
Gabe, at the Stamford Bridge Quarterly. I just think from a mindset and self-belief perspective, it's the one that I've taken the most from. It's also quite spiritual as well, which, like I said to Harry 10 years ago, I'd be like, what the fuck are you reading that for? But it's actually, I would say that meditation and spirituality and in some elements of Buddhism as well has carried me a long way with my journey. I find I don't get drawn out as much as I used to. I'm an avid football fan, mate, and I know you won't really get, but I used to get so wound up with somebody like, I'm a Chelsea fan. I used to get so pissed off and so wound up if somebody tried to wind me up about football. I don't know why, it just happened. Maybe again, seeing how my family reacted and stuff in the past and whatever. But now it's just like over my head, and that may sound like quite a shallow thing, but it's quite an important thing, right? Because you can't. Personally, I don't think you can say that you're a mindset coach, but then get triggered by something so, in the grand scheme of
Yeah,
things, of the big wide world, so little. But more importantly, the balance of my own brain. the chemistry that's going on up there because of the work that I've done on spirituality, whether it be John DeMartini, um, whether it be the work that I've put in with meditation and the Headspace app, or all of those kind of things. Yeah, huge.
Yeah, Peter Sage. Inside Track, it's called, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
I've
right.
read,
Yeah, yeah.
like I say, I've read it, but I couldn't tell you anything about what's inside of it. I might have
And
to
the
reread
the
that
other
one.
one that I've got for the car at the minute, audiobook, I'm like kind of switching on and off, is I never really, to be honest with you, out of all of the personal development gurus in the world, Tony Robbins is the biggest, right? Probably.
Oh,
Yeah.
100% now.
Yeah. I've never really listened to any of his stuff, but he's got a book which is The 7 Rules of Money or something like that, and I'm listening to
Right?
that at the moment. Yeah, just because I think that's probably one of my biggest weaknesses is how I think about money, and obviously all of the gurus tell you to think about it a little bit differently, don't they? So that's a
Yeah,
challenging one for me to listen, but it's a nice one to. I actually quite like listening to him. To be fair, he's easy. Recently,
yeah.
I've listened to Simon Squibb's book, which is pretty
Right.
good.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen his
Uh,
video. I've seen him on YouTube and stuff. I've
oh
never
mate,
read his book. Though.
I think he's class.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, What's Your Dream? That's literally what it's called as well. The book's called What's Your
yeah.
Dream. I like fiction, but I'm one of those that I'll reread Lord of the Rings, I'll reread
Right.
Harry Potter just because it takes my, like, the seriousness away from life.
Yeah,
Um, my favorite book of all time though is Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I think
yeah, yeah. It's good.
that is
I listened to that one.
yeah, the one of the books that taught me the most that I could then take into my life. So one of the things that I'll use with my clients now is if it's not a fuck yeah, it's a no. Like when it comes to making decisions and boundaries and things like that, which I think is really
Yeah,
important. And then also like the grand scheme of things, if you can get it from the book, is just care less. Like the
yeah.
chances of us being here are so finite that actually the things that we're worried the most about mean normally the least. So yeah, it's a nice book to listen to or read.
I listen to loads. Like when I'm at work, like I said, I work by myself a lot. So like I'm always looking for books and podcasts and stuff to listen to. Like you were on about Tony Robbins before. I was listening to him on Jay Shetty's podcast the other day, and he's been on Modern Wisdom and that, and he's absolute genius, and Tony Robbins. So, what about podcasts? What's your go to with podcasts?
I'm quite specific now. So like you, mate, I used to take so much information on that I would find myself like almost not taking the information in, if that makes sense. So now I'll really look at the title of the podcast and see if it's relevant to me or not. If I'm honest with you, I love listening to like my idols. So if there's anything new with Frank Lampard or John Terry on, I'll give them a listen. I like obviously from growing up, I was a big fan of WWE as well, and I still check the results and stuff now just to see what's going on. But when The Rock and obviously rest in peace, Hulk Hogan have been on Joe Rogan recently, I've made sure that I've listened to them. I know John Cena's just done an episode as well, and he's now retired from wrestling, so that's going to be an interesting one. But like recently, I've listened to an episode on Modern Wisdom with the guy who created parts. I can't remember the guy's name, but it's really worth a listen. He made parts of the Mars rover, and he's worked with
Right.
Apple. He's worked with NASA. He's just a really smart guy. But he talks about overcoming limiting beliefs. I think it was the main kind of subject, but it was really interesting. But yeah, if it's a title that I'm really interested in, I'll listen to it. There's no real specific podcast that I'll go into. I just want to know that what I'm going to listen to, there may be a takeaway from me at the end of it, rather than kind of just going from pillar to post trying to find information.
Yeah, I'm a bit like that. I'm more listening to just sort of like entertain myself while I'm at work more than anything else. And I think if I do pick if something does stick from listening to this, then it's a bonus, isn't it?
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure, man.
I so let's move on to the running. You do a lot of running now. You mentioned it before, obviously when you started getting into shape. You just recently completed an ultra marathon or something
Yeah,
like
so I
that.
did a run down south called Ham Hill to Lyme Regis, which was 54 kilometers. It's the second time that I'd done a 50 plus K ultra. So the first one I did I did for charity, and the second one I did because I wanted to better my time. Um, but yeah, my running journey has been a huge part of what I've achieved personally in terms of, I think it's definitely, no, not even I think, I know that it's definitely impacted my resilience and my mindset. The fact that when you look at the 9 years ago, I couldn't run a mile, to the fact that now I can coach other people to run marathons and half marathons and manage them well myself as well. One thing that I've always kind of maintained as well is that without all of this running journey, there's been an element of strength as well that I've wanted to keep going. So I am in the 90 kg mark. There's still no super duper fast PBs in this. I just do it because I love it. And I think I love it because it's an attachment to the story that I have, you know. So when I started my journey, I couldn't run a mile, right? That was the penny dropping moment for me to be like, you got to change something here, Harry. So then it was, could I run a mile? Yeah. Then I ran 2 miles. Then it was about 5K. And then it was about signing up to my first event, and I did an event called Martok 10K, which I obviously completed. And I remember that run vividly. My mum and dad, even though they're not together, they came and they watched that race together to see me do it. And from there, it's just about proving myself wrong time after time. One of the things that I found the other day, mate, actually, I did the hot pen technique, like the goal setting
Yeah, yeah,
exercise in 2022. And in 2022, by the way, this is for the listeners, I'd still not ran a half marathon. So in those goals, it was finally have run a half marathon, which I remember at that quarterly being like, right, let's fucking sign up to one. So I did sign up to it and I completed it. But then only 3 years later, I've ran London marathons. I've done and 2 ultra marathons as well, you know. So yeah, it's incredible, mate. I think the places that you can go to when you're in a hole, when you're running, give you great training for life.
yeah,
Because I
definitely.
think
Aye.
some of the old thoughts and patterns that I have now got a hold on will just pop in and say hi when I'm out running, and maybe I'm experiencing a bit of fatigue or I've got cramp and it's really easy to give up, but you choose not to and you just choose to carry on. And when you get to the end of these races, the feeling is just fucking, it's with the longer ones, you know, like the longer ones, when you get to the end of them, you're just like, fucking hell, that's cool. Yeah.
But as you say though, like I think you done a talk in Leeds, which was great by the way. It was class. I
Thank you,
learned a lot
mate.
from it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And that was, you mentioned in that about like the cling film ceilings and stuff.
Yeah,
So it's
man.
like the like you say, the longer ones. What 1 mile might be a long one for someone, mightn't it? And then once
For
you,
sure.
what I loved about that is like once you break through that, once you realize you can do that, then you're like looking at what's next, and then and it goes on, doesn't it? And you start achieving stuff that you didn't think was possible. Like I've done it myself over the years with the running.
Yeah.
Like you say, half marathon was probably the big goal I set myself. And then this year, the furthest I'd done a run, I'd set myself a challenge to do the wall, which was a 70-mile ultra marathon. I failed, but in my training, my longest training run was 36 and a half miles, which is, so if I'd have thought, if somebody had said to me like a few years ago, you're going to run 36 and a half mile unsupported, just like done it by myself. It was no event. I just ran along the Northumberland coast, 36 and a half miles one day. I would have never believed you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. It's incredible what you can do. And yeah, I think for anybody listening, the analogy of the cling film ceiling is this can be linked to anything, right? Starting your own podcast, it can be linked to weight loss, it can be linked to running, it can be linked to not being able to bench 100 kg, right? That belief is there, and you think that you're stuck in a room with this belief, and at the top of the ceiling is like an opaque blocked ceiling, but in the middle of that room is a ladder, and that represents the actions that you take towards that goal. And every time that you take an action, you then get closer to the ceiling. So with regards to my journey, 1 mile, 2 miles, 5K, 10K, and then you get to the top of the ceiling, and you realize that when you're at the top of the ceiling, the ceiling's actually made of cling film, and you poke your head through it, and then you realize, oh fuck, there's another room with another ceiling. So you either choose, are you happy where you are, or do you carry on climbing? And I think
Yeah,
it's such a nice analogy. And you can take that into anything because with every limiting belief is a set of actions that either will get you to your result in the end, or if it's a really big goal, so like you want to make £1 million or you want to get 1 million downloads on your podcast, or you want to create 500 grand's revenue from YouTube, whatever, there's still a set of actions and there's still ladders that you will climb up. And you may not get to the top room that says £1 million at the top of the ceiling, but you might get to 500,000 or whatever. With every goal, there's a set of actions that you can take and you're going to get closer to them either way.
that's great. It was great, like you say, great analogy, and I enjoyed the talk. What was it called? It was fat to ultra
Yeah,
or something like that. Wasn't
fat and depressed to ultra marathon, I think. Yeah.
it? Yeah, mad. Um, I've seen recently as well that you, and we talked about it before about alcohol and stuff.
Yeah, man.
Where you're at? Where are you at with that? I see. I think I seen on social media that are you nearly at a year or
Done the year now. Yeah.
you've done
Do
it?
you know
Oh,
what? It
class.
just came and went without even a
Yeah,
blink of an
yeah.
eye.
Mine
You know
did.
what? Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah. Are you
Yeah.
the same? You
I've
drink
had a
or?
drink since. I did a year. I wanted to do a year, and I've gradually built it up over the last few years. Since seeing like other people and like I've had having conversations with people like Marcus Jones, who I had on the podcast and stuff, and um, seeing people's transformations, like his, like yourselves, like Paul's. It's inspiring, isn't it? And that like led us on to, and obviously I learned a lot about it by listening to podcasts and reading books and stuff about like how bad alcohol is for you and stuff. But I tried a few years ago. The first time I tried, I got 5 months in. Second time I tried, I got 10 months in, and then I went on a stag do to Benidorm. And then the
That
last
was
time
game over.
yeah, and then the last time I tried, it was I made a year, and I got 13 months, and then I had a drink again, and then went one more beer. I had a couple of beers as well. Nothing serious, just a few beers and that. So, but I definitely felt realized the day after why I haven't been doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's made so much of an impact in my life, and it's probably the number one thing I've done to help me mental health as well, like without a doubt. So
And I always think about this. I have no data for this, and I always think that data comes before drama every time. But when I look back at that really unhappy version of myself, how many times had I been on a absolute session on a Saturday night after a game of football or whatever the occasion may have been, where the week after I felt low as fuck without really putting two and two together. And that's not the case for everybody, right? Because I've had conversations with people where I'm like, oh yeah, just feel a little bit energyless for days on end after I've had like 8 pints or whatever it may be. And people are like, oh no, I don't get that. And I'm like, I don't know whether you don't get that or whether you just are that sort of in tune with your energy and actually feeling really fucking good that you don't know. There's no there's no
yeah, yeah,
difference between every Monday for you. It's the same. And that's not a criticism. It's just where I was at. I was like, because I really do notice it because I've never been of recent years somebody that would drink every weekend anyway. Like it's just not something I would do. However, when I did drink, there'd be a sense of regret and also definitely a sense of really fucking low energy. And I wanted to do something about that. And obviously I did. But now this is going back to something I've said with regards to making your own decisions. I am looking into whether I did the year for me or whether because I thought it was a good idea because of the environment we're in, right? And now, because I've done the year, I want to make my own rules about what's okay and what's not, you know? So actually, if I go on holiday with my mates somewhere this year, like what are my rules going to be? Because I know what I don't want to happen. I know I don't want a fucking stinking hangover and I don't want to ruin my energy for a week. But actually, having a couple pints of Guinness with my mates and being like, right, 4 pint limit, no shots, but I am going to have a beer in the sun in Valencia or whatever it is because it's the company I'm with. Is that really a bad thing? I don't know. Like again, it's about making your own rules up on things, right?
yeah, definitely. Like I say, I think it was more about the challenge for me. It was just more about like
Yeah, I
achieving
completely
that
agree.
thing. Like, yeah, could I do it? And like I just wanted to see if I could do it, and obviously I've done it now. So it is what it is. But like, it definitely had a massive impact on, and it's definitely changed me relationship with alcohol going forward, like without a doubt.
Completely agree with you, man.
Yeah. So what's next for Harry Purdy? What you got? What's your like? What goals? What you working on? What's coming?
Yeah, I want to grow the 100% business this year. That's definitely number one on my agenda. I've been like, hence the putting myself with Simon Squibb and Tony Robbins and getting these businessmen in my ears, right? I'm trying to force my environment that way, getting people who have done it, been there, taken risks and all that kind of thing in the ears to not just inspire me, but give me like practical tips that I can take forward. So there's that one. On the fitness front, I have always, so this is a funny one. It's running based. I live in a town called Yeovil, which I've mentioned already, and there is a half marathon. I've always said I'll never run it though, because the route is where I live. Like any run that I've ever trained for, I've ran the half marathon route. But I'm not doing it. But that thought in itself, I've been like, for fuck's sakes, just do it and then it's done. And then you never have to do it again. So I've signed up to that. But because it's on home soil, is what I'm calling it. And I want to PB it basically. So I've got a proper training plan that I'm following for the next 10 weeks on that front. And then I think I've changed my mindset on so many things, mate, but just making sure week to week, I'm not just dialing in from task to task. I'm living life in a way that I'm enjoying it. I've got a bit of a passion for pool and snooker comeback. So I've been to Thailand recently, and there's pool tables and snooker tables everywhere. I played a lot of pool out there, and I used to play a lot of pool, and I haven't for ages. But it's just kind of like triggered a bit of a thing in me. So I want to get back on a snooker table and see if I can remember how to play. Yeah, just things like that, man. Like, just
Yeah.
enjoy life, help other people in the process, stick myself out there and see what we can make.
Class, aye. Like I'm the same with that with the running. I've shrunk it back down a little bit. I just want to get a PB on me half marathon. I want to do a sub 2 hour. I'm doing the Great
Class.
North Run again in September, so that's my main fitness goal for this year. But aye, so
You know where to come for a training plan.
yeah, I've learned a lot over the last couple of years from me failures. So the
Mate,
biggest lessons
yeah,
have
you'll
come
be
from
fine.
them. So
I
yeah,
always
yeah,
think about those big events, like, because I'm sure you'll get a number with your name on. So you'll be running, mate, round the northwest, and everybody will be shouting your fucking name, and you won't be able to slow down because of the adrenaline. And same for the London Marathon. And I did Bristol, uh, the great whatever it is, the AJ Bell Bristol run last year. When you've got your name on your shirt, people just support you
yeah.
regardless.
It
That's cool.
throws you, doesn't it? When the first
Yeah,
happens, it happened to me on the Great North Run, and when people are saying that, like shouting Dan, I'm like, but then you realise, it threw was the first
yeah,
time
it's
it
good,
happened.
man.
Aye. No, but it's been great getting to know you a bit better today, Harry, and I look forward to seeing your progress over the next few months, because no doubt whatever you do, like someone who's as consistent as you, like the podcast says everything I need to know that you're going to go for. Do you know what I mean? Do you want to tell anyone that's listening where they could find you, or
Yeah, I'd love to,
plug
man.
your socials?
Thank you, mate. The podcast is called the 100% Podcast. It's available on all of your regular podcast platforms, so Spotify and Apple Podcasts mainly. And if you prefer watching it, it's on YouTube as well. 100% Podcast. And then if anybody's got any kind of intrigue as to what I offer, I've got a 14-day free journal. Dan and I have alluded to the fact that some of these habits 10 years ago, we'd have probably laughed at ourselves. Actually getting over that and trying these things may be the thing that may benefit you, whether it comes to your fitness or your mindset. So if you go to 100% journal.co.uk, you can go and see my 14-day free journal.
Class. Well, as I say, thanks for coming on, mate, and
Appreciate you having me, man.
we'll sort something out soon if you want us to return the favour and jump on yours or
Yeah, that'd be class.
whatever. Just let us know. Aye.
Sick.
Thanks,
Sweet as a
mate.
nut, mate.
Cheers.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Cheers, pal.